Back in the 1980s, it was every schoolboy coder's dream to write their own version of Defender. Maybe I'm generalising there, but it was my dream. As I only had a ZX81, my dream was to write a ZX81 version of Defender. Of course, the ZX81 software houses did just that, and there were some good versions produced, such as QS Defender, which you could play if you had the money to buy it. I didn't have enough pocket money to buy games at the time, so when I started an O-level in computers and I had to write a project for it, I decided to write my own version of Defender. The code didn't survive, unfortunately, and I don't even have any printouts or photos of the project, so all I have now are my faded memories of the game, which I'm redrawing on screen. I'm using my ZX Doodle tool, and I'll try it also in dark mode to see which I prefer. So as a low effort project, I'm going to try and recreate what I remember in this video. I'm not going to write it on the ZX81, as that would involve a lot of effort, as it would need to be written in machine code to be fast enough. So what I'm going to do is prototype the game in TypeScript, which I can write quickly. The game will be written to look exactly like a ZX81 game, with low resolution block graphics, no colour and no sound. I write it in such a way so that it can be ported to the ZX81 at a later date, to C mixed with assembler, as I discussed in my C video series previously. That means not using any of the fancier features of TypeScript, and if I have to use classes for example, they will be structured very simply so they can be ported easily to C. So the first step of the project is to create a planet with a ship that can fly over it, and maybe something on the surface that can be picked up. The ship would need to be able to change direction as in Defender, and this definitely wasn't possible in my O-level game. So having drawn out the basic design for the game using ZX Doodle, using black on white characters, I decided to experiment and see what the game would look like white on black or in dark mode. Finishing off the design, getting all of the characters looking their best, deciding whether to invert them or not. The original game wasn't in dark mode, but I found I was liking it, so I decided to go with that. So I have the ship, the planet, score and high score, a working title, a status area, number of ships left, and at the bottom right more room for statuses. I've added mines in the sky and some men to defend on the planet. So moving on to code, the first thing I added was the planet's surface. To start with, there was no delay, so a very fast sideways scroll. Next I added a delay to slow down the scroll and added mines in the sky and some men on the planet's surface. I'll do more work on these in a subsequent session if I carry on with this. Then I added an indicator bar on the second line down of the screen. This was to help development see where the ship was on the planet. But I think it's quite a nice feature, so I think I'll leave it in. The planet is 256 columns wide, so with 32 characters per screen, there are effectively 8 screens, which I think is plenty. I may add more to the bar going forward. Then I added reversing by hitting the space bar. This definitely wasn't in my original game, but a Defender-like game needs it, so you can reverse to deal with things that you may have passed and go back to them. So for this I added a scroll in the opposite direction. And finally I added the ship. The ship is made up of 4 sprites, 2 for each direction, so there is some animation as it flies. It had to be able to fly over the planet and also across it without crashing, and the planet had to redraw as it moves off it. The mines would need collision detection, so the ship would explode if it ran into one and end the life. This is still to add. For now the men on the surface can be flown over, and I've yet to decide what to do with them. So now I add the beginnings of a game, a planet to fly over, things to pick up or defend, and obstacles in the sky. Prototyping the game meant I've been able to get this far in just over a day, which wouldn't have been feasible in machine code. Likewise, it would have taken longer in C with assembler for the scrolling, but not as long as full machine code. I've written the TypeScript so that it can be converted to C at a later date, to be compiled to a ZX81P file to run on the ZX81, as I've talked about in my last few videos. I have a few bugs to sort out, nothing too major, a glitch on the planet's surface, and a few other glitches I'm working on. As I will never be able to recreate Defender on the ZX81 better than the software houses at the time, and the Williams original can't be surpassed. At this point I'm going to take the game in a different direction, and I hope to explain this in further videos. Hope that was interesting, and thanks for watching.